So, you want to roleplay as the most important character who did absolutely nothing wrong? Well, you've come to the right place, my friend. Sit down and allow me to shine some light on everyone's favorite thief, Vriska Serket. Vriska Serket is a troll from the planet Alternia. From the beginning of her appearances, she is 6 solar sweeps old, or roughly 13 human years. This changes throughout the timeline of Homestuck as she, and the rest of our favorite gang, grow up. Depending on when in the timeline you wish to roleplay her out, you need to take into account on her maturity. Vriska is also a special case in which her personality takes 2 diverging paths, Alpha Timeline Vriska and Parentheses Vriska. Let's start with the former. Alpha Timeline Vriska is about as pure Vriska as one can get. While she may be strong of will, mind, and spirit, she doesn't come to fruition with her faults. She is quick to get into reckless situations, such as her attempt to go and fight Bec Noir, which would have resulted in the deaths of every one of her friends on the meteor due to her fairy trail that she had left behind. She is also devoid of any proper moral compass. While her heart is typically in the right place, her actions are typically seen as wrongful and abusive. As she grows older and wiser, she becomes a brilliant tactician, orchestrating the events of Collide. This is also true of Parentheses Vriska. Parentheses Vriska, being the version that did not go through the 3 years on the meteor, had different experiences, thus different developments in her personality. She took charge as the demanding, headstrong leader of a massive ghost army, and as her plans began to fall apart, she flipped a switch and softened up, forming a short-lived relationship with Mina. This fell apart only when Alpha Timeline Vriska joined the picture, but from Mina's standpoint, it was bound to happen. So, how do you go about role-playing this awesome pirate? It is important to think of yourself as superior to your partner or partners, though do not go overboard. Out of character is different from in character. You need to portray Vriska as someone who believes they are better than everyone else and will do everything in their power to prove it, including to the detriment of others. Vriska is someone who would never back down from a fight, no matter the odds, especially if she can turn the odds in her favor. She is also very reckless and doesn't put too much thought into her actions or their consequences. She is quick to jump to action in any cause she believes in, especially if she will obtain the spotlight because of it. This is in part to her god tier, Thief of Light, where she will make herself relevant where she does not necessarily need to be. In conversation, she makes herself the center of attention, drawing the subject of the conversation to her in either a positive or negative way. Now let's talk about her relations with the others. Note, these can be thrown out the window if you are playing an alternate timeline Vriska. I'm going to focus on the beta characters for this video, but if enough people want the alpha characters, I'll make a part 2. Let's start with the trolls. Aradia. Vriska is very bipolar when it comes to Aradia. She mostly sees her as competition throughout the comic. She doesn't seem afraid to confront Aradia, though it typically backfires on her due to Aradia's own nature, which we will get to in another video. Tavros. This relationship dynamic is all about abuse, with Vriska being the abuser in this sense. She won't exactly admit that she is abusing him, typically justifying it through her ridicule of Tavros. Solix. Vriska doesn't overly talk to him, but for the sake of role-playing purposes, we can assume that, due to the events in which she used him to kill Aradia, Solix won't be overly up to friendly conversation with our friendly neighborhood spider troll. In this case, react as Vriska would. Nepeta. Vriska seems to have a bit of a playful teasing attitude with Nepeta. They don't have many canon interactions, but the ones they do have include Nepeta being more nervous around her. Vriska does seem to want some sort of friendship with her, though. Karkat. Karkat and Vriska have an interesting dynamic that begs the question of if a possible kismecissitude could happen. Karkat sees her as vile at first, but they also see each other on equal terms. Kanaya. The relationship here is pretty sad, actually. Kanaya made her advances in hope for a matesmanship, and Vriska continuously ruined every attempt through her inability to handle relationships in any sense. Terezi. Ah, yes, the Scourge Sisters. At first, the relationship is that of any best friend situation. Playful antics and the occasional dispense of justice to the unjust, as well as the procurement of goods. Once the revenge incident happens, however, things take a swan dive, as Terezi wants nothing to do with Vriska. After her death, though, Vriska and Terezi reunite with a kindred and genuine friendship. At least it can be seen as friendship. Maybe more than that. Come on, hussy. Until their double deaths. Equius. This relationship is nothing more than one of neighborly friendship, if you could call it that. Vriska seems to only speak to him when she wants something from him. Gamzee. Gamzee is absolutely terrified of Vriska, and Vriska loves this. Aridin. Vriska pretty much used Aridin to fuel her Mindfang fantasies. As such, she hates him and he hates her. Feferi. These two have a bit of an understanding towards each other. They respect each other and even have friendly jabs at each other. Vriska seems to be impressed by her. Now that we've gotten through the trolls, let's do the humans, shall we? John. John and Vriska seem to have the most canonical interaction out of the four humans. Vriska is seen to have interest in making him reach his full potential, whether he knows it or not. Vriska seems to have red feelings for John, and has a tendency to be jealous of his interactions with Rose in particular. Rose. Not too much is displayed between these two, but what can be inferred is that Vriska is uninterested in Rose, thinking her as off-putting. Dave. These two don't overly have interaction, so little that the wiki has no information on their relationship. So I'd suggest using the magic phrase, "What would Vriska do?" when interaction with one such strider. Jade. Vriska and Jade only interact for plot reasons, in which Vriska typically causes Jade to fall asleep. She sees Jade as useless, and compares her to Tavros in that aspect. For some final thoughts. Vriska is definitely a hot-headed fireball with a penchant for violence. She never backs down from a fight, even if the odds are stacked against her, which they usually are, but she typically brings them in her favor. Thank you so much for watching my first How to Roleplay As episode. Please vote in the comments on who you want to see next. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, and click that little bell icon to make sure you keep up on the videos that I put out. Have an awesome day, and remember that every subscription keeps Gamzee in the fridge.